Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel that is Science Unlocked, and here we are with our next part of the chapter Motion and Time, which is coming from class 7 Science NCERT textbook. Now the first part that we are going to cover in today's session is about the concept of graphs, that what exactly graphs are. Now why we are talking about the graphs? Because when we talk about speed, time, motion and all these concepts, there is one important aspect, that is they are represented many a times in the form of graphs. So we should be having a clear idea about graphs and how exactly they are read, they are how interpreted and how they are represented. So this is what we will going to learn in today's session, where the very basic idea is that graphs can be represented in different formats, and in most of the cases it will going to have some pictures or some diagrams or some geometrical shapes altogether involved over here. And here we will going to find out that we will going to represent the relationship between two things, two quantities or two numbers altogether, which will going to give us the complete idea about what exactly the graph is representing and what exactly the variables are, what is the overall distance in terms of units, or you can say the quantity in terms of units that are represented over here. Now the chapter that we are doing consists of the graphs which involve distance and time interrelation. So in these kinds of graph, that is the distance and time graphs, we will going to take the two quantities, that will be one will be distance and the other one will be the time duration. And whenever we plot a distance time graph, we will always take the distance on y-axis and time on x-axis, that is the horizontal axis. So this is what a distance time graph looks like, where the x-axis will going to have time on it, the y-axis will going to have distance on it, and they can be representing the different set of motions that are being observed in case of the different objects. So as over here the object is showing a fast and steady speed. On the other hand, over here the pink line line in the graph is showing that the object is first of all showing the steady speed, then it is at stationary because the line is parallel to the time axis, which means that time is continuously moving but the distance is not changing at all, so that means the object is not moving. And similarly the green one, which is representing that it has suddenly modified its speed and has got faster. Why it has got faster? Because why, like how we are observing this thing, because of the spike that has taken place in case of the slope. So what exactly is the concept of slope? That we will going to take up in the next part, which is the coming part. Now the next aspect related with distance time graph is that there are certain precautions that we need to follow, and there are certain rules that we need to keep in mind while plotting and understanding the concept of distance time graph. That is, we need to understand that what will be the maximum quantity that we will going to take up on each and every axis. All the quantities should be having the equal parts altogether, so that the understanding can be become constant. Then the next part is that the equal parts that we have chosen, that purely depends on the data available to us. If the data is comparatively of less range or a shorter range, then we can elaborate the data. But if the data is of larger scale, the range is very high, then in that case it can be a possibility that we will be representing it in a like very short and crisp manner. On the other hand, one should always keep a check of this aspect, that the graph that we are plotting or the graph we are presenting should be clean in observation, so that it becomes easier for the reader as well, that what exactly the graph is trying to represent. The next part that we have is the concept of slope. That means whenever it comes to the understanding of the distance time graph, these slopes will going to help us. Now the very first thing related with the slopes is this thing, that if a particular line is represented or given to us, for example OA in this graph, OB or OC, these are actually the path, or you can say the like process or progress of the object has been shown. And whenever this thing happens, we will always and always going to drop the perpendiculars to the x-axis and y-axis from the end points of these particular lines. As a result of that, we will be able to find out the slope of the object. Now there is always a constant con- uh, concept related with the distance time graph, that whenever there will be a slope which will be greater, then in that case the speed of the object will also be greater. Then in that case we will going to find out that over here the OA is having the highest slope. Here the height which have been attained by the slope on the graph is very much high, and the time covered will going to be less as compared to the distance traveled. So over here we will going to find out that slope 1, or as it is represented over here in case of OA and this one. So this particular this particular slope will going to be the greatest in terms of speed, and the direction that we are moving in, that is from OA to OB and towards the OC, the slope will going to decrease. So that is how we can represent this particular graph altogether in the form of symbols, that OA will going to be greatest, then here the speed will be the maximum, here the speed will be minimum, will be medium, and in case of OC the speed will going to be minimum. So that is how the slope actually helps us in understanding that what exactly the graph is trying to depict. Now the next thing that we have is that what are the different kinds of graphs that we have all together, and with which we can actually learn the concept of graphs altogether. So over here I have taken 4 basic ideas. The one which is here, which is parallel to the x-axis, is the condition where the object is at rest. It simply means that time is continuously moving, but the distance traveled by the object is not moving, it is constant. So over here we will going to find out that the object is at rest. Now when we talk about this particular graph, we have already discussed in the previous session, part of the same session, that is whenever there is a spike over here, a J-shaped structure, that will going to be considered as the condition where the object is moving forward with a increasing speed, because the distance which the object has started covering will going to be comparatively in shorter duration of time. On the other hand, when we talk about a straight line like this, we will going to say that the object is moving forward, but it is having a constant speed, means the speed is not modifying. And whenever there is this kind of a graph, we will going to say that the object is moving forward with a decreasing speed, which is because opposite of this particular section of the graph. So that is what exactly is the whole concept related with the graphs that you should be aware about as per class 7th, and these things will going to get modified in higher classes and will going to get become a little bit more and more intense in terms of learning, but that is something that we can take up and discuss later on. Now the last aspect that we have for the chapter is the usage of different devices and vehicles, which will in the form of instruments, which are ultimately helping us in understanding that what exactly is the overall aspect of speed that we are using in our nowadays vehicle. So the very first structure that we have is the speedometer, and this speedometer nowadays are actually coming with odometers. On the other hand, nowadays when we talk about our vehicles, we will going to find out that there is one tachometer as well, which is going to give us the overall revolutions per minute. That means that how fast or how speedily the shaft or the case of the tires are moving, the engine is moving, is rotating. So speedometer is the device which helps us in understanding the speed of the vehicle, that means at what speed the vehicle is moving. Then odometer gives us the idea about the distance traveled by the vehicle, that from the initial point and to the final position, what is the overall distance it has traveled. And then the tachometer, which talks about the rotation of the shaft and revolution of the shaft. So what exactly it means is that the acceleration you are providing, then it actually impacting the shaft altogether. So how exactly it is impacting the overall movement and speed of the object. So this is all about the concept of motion and time as per class 7th standard, which you all should be aware about, because these are the things which are very basic, and one should always make sure that they have some basic idea about these things. So rest we will going to take up in our next session. Till then, take care and keep learning.